Mr. Kevin, welcome.
How are you, bro?
I'm good, bro. As I said, I've been very excited for today's episode
Yeah.
because even the first time we met, I felt there was a connection there,
Yep,
but
yep.
we didn't quite get to go deep enough.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're on someone else's podcast,
Yep.
Mr. Stodgify,
Yeah.
which I'm super grateful that he brought you into this space and that we were able to connect. So,
Yeah.
man, thank you for taking the time out of your day to jump on, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for what today's going to bring.
Thank you for having me. And it's funny, exactly your words is exactly what I thought. I was like, there's a connection here. We connect on personal development. And there was something in the conversation that made me go, like, we got to converse more. And we're on the podcast. So perfect.
For people who don't know who Mr. Kevin is, right?
Yep.
I think every story starts from our upbringing.
Yeah.
What's the earliest context that we need to know about you to better understand the man that sits in front of us today?
That's a beautiful question. I think, in summary, I believe that whatever we value in life is where we are best at. For me, I value personal development, and that's where I serve people the best. That's where I talk the best. And my value of personal development came from a void. And I think values only come from voids. So, for example, my dad, I love him and we have a great relationship right now. And I think he also had good intentions, but his way of motivating me was calling me dumb and stupid and good at nothing. So that was the story that played in my head. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm good at nothing. So because I felt like I was good at nothing, I think I became obsessed with personal development. And if I was to summarize my story, that would be it. I thought I was good at nothing, so I became obsessed with personal development. And the beauty is that's the area that I like to serve in now.
Yeah. Was there ever a period in your life, like obviously when you get told something over and over again, and I can relate to that with my own dad, and I love the guy, right? And
Yeah.
I have so much love and empathy towards him. But for me, in my upbringing, there was a clear divide in the family, right? It was me and my mum. I was mummy's boy, and my
Yeah.
brother and my dad. And it
Wow.
even, to go a level deeper, right? When I only learnt this when I became a dad myself, right? And my mum told me, when you were a baby, you never really wanted anything to do with your dad. You would always cry and not really want to be with him.
Were you the youngest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So I was his firstborn, and then going into my own self and being a dad myself, I couldn't imagine what that would be like with my firstborn child not really wanting much to do with you.
Wow.
And
When did you start feeling like that?
as in,
When did you remember to start to feel like that? Like, I didn't really want much to do with him. When I was
my
young.
mum told me that this
Right.
is what I used to do.
Right.
Yeah. So when my daughter was born, and it really got me thinking, like, fuck, I feel like there was a level of unconscious resent there
Yeah. Right.
towards me, and I think that's why he kind of treated me differently,
Right.
because I wasn't like him, whereas my
Right.
brother's like exactly
like
I
him.
like him, and I'm like
Yeah.
my mum. So me growing up, he would say things of like, "Oh, you're lazy," because I didn't want to do the things that he wanted to do, or help in
Yeah.
the backyard because I wanted to, do other things inside.
Yeah.
I wasn't like him.
Yeah.
And growing up being just like you, being told those things of you're not really going to amount to much, you're lazy, you're going to be like a garbage man or something like that, right? It really gets in your head. And for me, there was a lot of lack of self-esteem, no
Yeah.
confidence, just really shy, really quiet, really introverted, didn't want to speak to anyone.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to, for you, there's like the analogy of learned helplessness, right? That then the elephant has the rope around it, and it grows up, becomes big, it can easily break the rope, but it doesn't. For you, was there a period where that rope was the words of your father, and how did you break that rope?
I think that, first of all, I just want to say my story is so similar to yours. It's crazy how similar my story is to yours, because I was very much like had my mum's traits, and I think my dad kind of didn't get along with me because of that. And I was the outruly one, which didn't want to go and do the gardening. So many of the things that you said, I resonate with. But what I've discovered is that rope was so unconscious that it took me a long time to discover that rope. And I only recently discovered that rope. So sometimes people have something that they're really aware of, like I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I'm good at nothing. But I don't think I understood the level that it held me down at. Does that make sense? Like it was very unconscious to me. But I guess what are you asking, like when I got rid of that or broke that?
Yeah, like when did you first come aware of it? Because you said it was unconscious.
Yeah,
right? So you just thought it was normal to be like this in a way.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think I guess what I'm saying is it was there, but I didn't know it came from my dad.
Okay, so when did you become conscious of it?
Yeah.
And then how did you go about breaking that rope? Because I know there's going to be plenty of people listening right now that have an unconscious rope, and it's like, wow. Through this conversation and listening to this, I'm hoping that they can become aware of that, because the whole purpose of this podcast is by challenging the way that we think, feel, and act.
Yep.
So having this conversation is going to challenge their thought process and be like, wow, is the way I'm feeling and acting because I have this unconscious rope around me?
Yeah. No, I get it. And that's a really good question, because I know that many people are trying to have a better quality of life in maybe their health, their wealth, their mindset, their relationships. They feel that unconscious tie or that story of I'm not good enough, and that holds them back, and I had that as well. And I just didn't realize how powerful it was until very recently. But I guess the way that I broke out of that is that let's talk about how we don't break out of that. How we don't break out of that is when we look at that and we allow that to define us by looking at it and going, he called me dumb, he called me stupid, she did this to me, they did this to me. And now what we do is we replay that story and we empower the idea that we are a victim. It happened to me, right? And here's the thing, there's 3 levels of consciousness. The first level is to me. Mum did it to me, boss did it to me, ex did it to me, right? And in that place of to me, we struggle to have results in our lives because we're trapped in that victimhood story. And then there is a higher level. And to get to the next level of consciousness, the next level of consciousness is called by me. And that's when you realize if it's to be, it's up to me. And I have to realize that no matter what happened to me, it happened to me, but what now? And I have to take responsibility and go, you know what? I was told I'm dumb, but let me prove to myself I'm smart. Let me prove to myself I can be hardworking. Let me prove to myself, like you said earlier, that I can get out of this by, even if it's to prove someone wrong. So the second level is by me. And the beautiful thing about by me, that's where David Goggins is. That's why these people who say take responsibility is so important, because once you realize that you are the problem, you can also empower yourself to realize that you can also be the solution in your life. But there is actually a high level, because there is a problem with by me, and no one talks about this. The problem with by me is, like David Goggins, there's an energy of, I got to force myself, I got to do it, it's all by me, I take responsibility. But the problem with that is there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, I have to perform, I have to work hard. And if I'm not disciplined with all of my habits, then I don't have self-worth. And that's why there is a higher level than by me called through me. And that's where you have taken the responsibility, but you actually trust in a higher power. And there's a sense of, I trust the answers will come to me. And you're not trying to control the outcome. You trust that whatever happens, happens. And there's a sense of ease to the way you do life. And I'll say most of the population never get past to me because they're stuck in that victimhood complex. That even less people get to by me, where through their grunting and their hard work, they transcend and maybe have results in their lives. But they still feel trapped because there is a higher level called through me, where there's a sense of trust in the universe or God, or even if it's me, that whatever happens needs to happen.
Yeah, interesting. And I think it comes back to that point I brought up before of, are you being driven or are you dragged?
Yeah.
Because the way I kind of grasp what you just say there is like, the through me is like, you're being driven by your past to like motivate you to be a better version of yourself. But at the same time, you're putting hope and faith in the higher power for the results, essentially. But you're being driven.
Yep.
Whereas by me is like you're being dragged.
Yes.
You're being dragged by your past to be this person.
Yep. This is the I'll prove you wrong energy. This is the I got to force it and no one's going to look after me, so I've got to do it myself, which is, by the way, still more empowering than being a victim.
Yes.
But there is a higher level, Because, for example, I have two clients of mine who are talking about this really successful, I'm not going to mention his name, really successful fitness influencer. And apparently this fitness influencer is very, very, you could say, successful and financially successful. But he's made many videos where he just talks about how he doesn't feel happy at all. I just got to do it. I don't like it. I hate it. I'm crying. I hate my life, but I just got to do it. And look, that's better because at least you're serving people. At least you have results in your life. But that's not the only way.
Yeah, people see that as discipline and resilience, right?
Right. But the fundamental difference, you know what it is, Nick? Am I being driven by a sense of I have to do this or else, which is fear-driven, versus I'm doing this because I love to?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the fundamental difference.
Yeah. And for you, I know coming back to everything you went through with your upbringing and with your dad, you externalized your emotions through anger.
Yes.
For me, I internalized it.
Yeah, right.
So I just kept everything internal, wasn't happy, no confidence, no self-esteem. I didn't like confrontation, I didn't like fighting or anything like that. So anger wasn't a way for me to express my emotions. And then I think that also stems from, because my dad was a very angry person, I didn't want to be like him. So when I expressed that anger, I thought, oh, shit, I'm be like my dad. So I had a very poor relationship with anger.
Yeah, wow.
Now I know you can have a healthy relationship with it. You can go punch a boxing bag, right? You can release that anger in that way and not be a bad person.
Yeah.
And not be violent.
Yeah.
So for you, how did you build that relationship with anger?
That's I love this question. So I think, again, there is a stage, right? And the first stage is kind of do nothing and let things happening to you. And then the second stage is where you use the resources that you have, right? And the resources that we had is, for me, it would have been anger. For you, you might have found a way to cope by being silent and maybe letting things happen or letting things play out or whatever it is, right? But for me, it was using my anger and my aggression. And I would watch these TV shows like Dragon Ball Z, and it would invigorate my anger. And I would feel like I would gravitate towards these aggressive, warlike characters in order to make me feel some sense of power, because then I didn't feel weak like the way my dad made me feel. And that drove me, because whenever I was playing sport, I would use that aggression. Whenever I would, I remember there would be games where in high school, I would just lose and I would just punch someone because I'd be like, well, at least I can beat you. You know what I mean? So that was the energy. And I think as you go on in life, maybe it becomes a little bit more nuanced. Maybe you use it, and I would use passive aggression in social context because it was socially acceptable. But eventually what happens is, any part of you that you have that's a coping mechanism, it comes to a point where it has a good side, but what got you here won't get you there, right? See, now what drives me is not that aggression. Now what drives me is a sense of love. And I had to come to that realization, because I had to realize that because I had this aggression made me close up and not want to show people that I'm weak. And this played out in my relationship because I struggled to be vulnerable. This played out with friendships because I struggled to be vulnerable. So I would have certain friends that I would always show I'm tough and aggressive. But then the moment that I started to become weak and show people I was vulnerable, these same friends that wanted me for that would go away, and they'd abandon me because they were like, no, we wanted you to be the strong leader. And I had this happen in my friend groups. So I started to realize that this model of doing things aggressively, it didn't work. So I had to now come across this new way of doing things, which is learning to be vulnerable. And now when I learned to be vulnerable, I actually struggled because I also felt like, but now I feel weak. So it was this metamorphosis I went through of being aggressive, then learning to be vulnerable, and now finding a balance. And the balance is, it's a dance. I use my aggression in a more beautiful way when I'm maybe at the gym. I use my aggression in a more beautiful way where maybe I need to get competitive and I need to beat someone in business. But it's a little bit more fun to it. It's almost like the mindset work I do is called parts work, right? And the whole concept of that is we actually are not one mind. We're multiplicity. And we have different parts of us that are literally like little people. that have their own personalities. And I have an anger part, and I have a happy part, and I have like a doubting part. I have all these different parts. And now the difference is the way that I run my life is I am the master, almost like I'm the master of the puppets. And if I'm playing a game now, I'm like, okay, the aggression, you can come in and you can take over right now. And I have a better relationship with all of these different parts. So to summarize answering your question, I realized that there was a problem with only doing things with anger. And then eventually I learned vulnerability, but that had a problem too. So now I've learned to balance it by being able to have a better relationship with all the parts that I have in my life. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And I think it comes into also like confidence versus authenticity, right? Because anyone can be macho man and it's seen as confident, right? You're expressing that strong masculine anger, don't mess with me.
Yep.
But a lot of the times that's just a mask for your insecurities.
Yeah.
But if you show up as your authentic self in vulnerability, it is hard. It's not weak. Really not weak. I think it shows more strength to be vulnerable than it is to put on a mask.
Yep. Absolutely. Do you remember this phrase, no homo?
Yes.
You remember this phrase?
I still kind of say it from time to time.
Yeah.
With the boys.
Yeah. Fair enough. So I have a bit of a different spin, and I made a video on it that kind of went viral for this reason. So my spin on it was that people, what they would do, guys would do this and say no homo, because what they're saying is, I want to give you affection. I want to say you look good. I want to say what's truly on my heart, but I'm too scared that it's going to be perceived as weak, so I need to pretend to say something like no homo, so it protects me from looking weak. Whereas the most masculine thing is to be like, I love you. You look beautiful. You look freaking amazing. I love it. And that's the most masculine thing. So the most masculine thing is to be able to just say what we really want to say without having to put some sort of spin on it, because it makes us feel safe.
Wow. Yeah, it's like that subconscious of not being judged for saying those things.
Yeah.
Wow, that actually makes me wonder why I said that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we all do it. And you know what? No homo is just like a more obvious way to do it. But I'm sure we all have different ways of doing it in different, in different circumstances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess we all do it in ways.
That's interesting. And I wanted to come back to, you said you do like a lot of parts work, and there's so many different parts of our brain, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question.
Yes.
If you're talking, who's listening?
Oh, man. Okay. Are we really going to go here? Okay. All right. Are we talking who's listening? Anything more that you want to add to that question before I jump in?
No, I just want to keep it like that.
Okay. What this shows me is that you've had some sort of background with meditation, right? And you're absolutely correct. So in the modality that I use, and I never go into detail on what I actually do in my work, but one of the modalities I use is something called parts work, right? Or internal family systems therapy. And it's very, very interesting. And the whole concept is that you have different parts of you. We have primarily 3 different parts. We have, at moment where we experience a trauma, we get split into different parts. So for me, there was a moment where when I was in primary school, I remember trying to play tips with the kids, and I thought I was playing tip, and I was chasing people, but I realized they weren't even playing tip with me. They were just running away from me because they didn't want to play with me. As soon as that moment sank in, I had such a pain in my chest that I can still feel right now. And I was 5 years old. And what happens is when we feel that type of trauma, you instantly split into another part. And I split into another part to protect me. And I have goosebumps when I talk about this. And I split into another part in order to protect myself. And the part was, is this how they're going to treat me? Watch. I'm going to be so popular. I'm going to figure out, how to be loved and likable and confident and beast and whatever. And then they're going to love me. And then they're going to want to play with me. So in order for us to cope with our pain, we need to split ourselves into a different part of us. So my part was the social confidence, the obsessed with, discovering what makes people popular. And that seed began. So I split up into a different part. There's 2 parts there. The exile, the inner child that got hurt in that moment. And then there is the protector. We call it a protector.
So the result's just internal scars.
Internal scars.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what happens is with parts work, this exile gets trapped in that moment and it gets frozen in that moment. And that's why, have you ever had an experience, Nick, where you're talking to someone and as soon as they get angry, you might even see this in your parents. As soon as they get so angry, you ask yourself, they're acting like a 6-year-old.
Yes.
But you know why? Because they are being the 6-year-old. Because they are being the 6-year-old that was stuck in time at that moment. Because this situation now is triggering that moment in that 6-year-old. Does that make sense?
And it's the reality. There's so many boys trapped in adult bodies.
That's right. That's exactly what this is, right? So this framework really depicts that. So there's a protector part, and then there is a firefighter part. The part that goes, this is too emotional. This is too emotional. So I got to douse the flame of emotion because it's too much for me to handle. This is why, for example, let's just say you go to a club, right? And you've been rejected by girls, for guys who are listening. What happens is you walk into the club and you see all these attractive girls, and instantly your little inner child starts vibrating and going, oh, this moment where I got rejected could happen again because all these girls are really attractive. So now now this fear begins of what if I experience that again? So now the firefighter comes and goes, let's go grab a drink. Because now if I grab a drink, the exile relaxes. And that's why people go and grab drinks, because it numbs the pain of the exile. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I can relate it back to even doing this podcast, right? Even a bit today, right now, I have this shaking feeling in me because what it does is it brings up that little boy that was not confident to have conversations. And I'm like, what if I stuff up?
Yeah.
Fear of judgment.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I've just learned to just jump in because I understand everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's come from building a relationship with myself too.
Yep.
For a long time there, I let that fear, let that anxiety really take over me.
Yeah.
Like to the point where if I was to be put in a new environment with new people, I'd make myself physically sick so I didn't have to kind of be there. Like it was that bad, like full shaking, dry reaching, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I was like, why the fuck am I living like this?
Yeah. Yep.
But through this personal development journey and understanding myself and building a relationship with fear, with anxiety, and understanding that it has stemmed from my childhood and my upbringing, I still experience it. And I'm experiencing it right now.
Yeah.
But I'm more comfortable with it.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And if you're open to it as well, we can do a little bit of a mini session so you can experience something right now. If you're open to it,
let's go.
Yeah, we can do it. And getting back to one of the questions was, like, what is the one that's watching? And here's the interesting part about it. There's different parts. So there's the exile, the inner child. There's the protector, and there's the firefighter that goes, this is too much emotion. Let me drugs, sex, alcohol, vice, so I don't have to feel the pain of the inner child. Right? Here's what's interesting. When you take all the parts away, there is another part, and that's not a part. I have goosebumps when I talk about this. It's called the self, the true self. Now, here's the interesting thing about the true self. When the true self is present, you are calm, you are compassionate, you are curious, and you are authentic. That's when you are absolutely authentic. And in that moment, when you are the true self, you don't need any of the vices. And this is all we want to experience in our lives. What we're actually looking for is a touch of the true self. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that true self is the interesting thing that I've found in all the different modalities. If you've meditated, there's a point where you go past about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and your mind shuts off and there's no more monkey mind. And you're not thinking about anything. Have you ever been to that moment?
Bliss of just like, you're there, but you're not there.
You're there, but you're not there. That is the self. Have you ever experienced where what's happening is, let's just say I'm in a conversation with you, right? And while I'm talking to you, I have another part that's going, I'm nervous. What is he going to ask me next? What am I going to eat next? And I have all these parts. While I have these parts, I'm not present with you, because self is a little bit present, but I also am focused on all these different parts. But now when I'm truly listening to you and I'm in flow state, when these parts calm down, then I can be truly present and be with you in this moment. And that's what self is. Self is the watcher. It is the observer. And what's interesting is when these parts all go away, what you're left with is curiosity and compassion. And that's where flow state happens. So flow state happens because of the self. True performance happens because of the self. True listening happens because of the self. And the opposite of the self is judgment.
Okay.
So, for example, if I'm listening to you right now, you say something, and instantly I have a part that goes, yeah, I don't like what he said. Now I'm not truly listening to you. I'm listening to the part that's judging you. But if I'm truly listening and I'm just waiting for the words to come out of your mouth, then the answers just come to me and it comes through the self. So I don't know if I'm making sense here.
You are. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask though, like you said, we have all these different paths, right?
Yeah.
They're always popping up. How do we clear the path for our true self to come out?
Ah, yes, yes. So we can even do a little bit of a demo right now. Would you like to do a demo?
Let's go for it.
Okay, beautiful. So first thing that we want to do with our parts is we just want to center ourselves and just get a little bit grounded with our breath. So I'd love you to just close your eyes if you could, if you feel comfortable, and just take a deep breath through your nose and let it out through your mouth. Another one deeply through your nose and let it out through your mouth. Now, I just want you to be aware of, you mentioned that there's a part of you that is a little bit nervous. Can you become aware of that part and let me know when you have it?
Yep.
Beautiful. And where do you feel that part on your body? Where is it manifesting on your body?
Heart, chest region.
Yeah, beautiful. And is it like an angst feeling, like a fluttering feeling? What are you feeling?
It's like a closed feeling, like compression.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you get any images of what this part looks like? This part that is making you feel nervous?
It's like a trapped little boy wanting to come out. Yet
Yeah.
there's barriers holding him back.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Now, I'd love you to just check in, Nick, not what this part is feeling, the nervousness, but what do you feel toward the nervous part?
Love,
Okay, beautiful.
empathy,
Beautiful. Is there anything else?
excitement.
Excitement. Beautiful. Beautiful. No negative feelings toward it?
No,
Okay, so no sense of wanting to get rid of this part, this nervous part?
it's a more so. The reason I say excitement is because I know once this little boy comes out, there's just going to be so much. I guess my true self is going to come out. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you to, you can just do this in your head if you like, is just let that part know how you feel. Let that nervous part know that you're feeling open to it, you feel loving to it, you feel accepting to it, and you're excited to get to know it. And just let me know how it reacts.
It's just like a relaxing feeling. Like it went from being compressed to now just relaxed.
Beautiful. So I'd love you to just let it know that you'd love to get to know this part and let me know how it responds.
Yeah, it wants to.
It wants to. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's beautiful. So I'm just going to ask you to chat to this part and ask this part, just say, nervous part, what's your purpose? Why do you make me nervous? Not from a judgmental place, but just from a curious and loving place. And let me know what comes back to you.
Fear of judgment.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, being put down, fear of judgment. Not living up to who I feel I can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that. And ask this nervous part, how does it use nervousness to protect you from that?
by being highly aware of my environment, everything that's going on, being prepared.
So here's what's interesting. Isn't that beautiful? That sometimes we can look at this part and think, oh, I don't like it, it's annoying, it's frustrating. But if you really think about it, Nick, how beautiful is that? Because here's what I know, man. Without that part, you probably wouldn't be as prepared. Without that part, you probably wouldn't be as switched on. Without that part, Nick, you probably wouldn't even be as empathetic to pick up people's emotions, because this part has had to be very hyper aware. So when you really think about it, how beautiful is this part for the way it supported you?
Yeah, it's like a superpower.
Yeah. So let that part know that you appreciate it, and let me know how it responds to that.
It's just like, happiness, a sense of love, happiness,
Beautiful.
relaxation.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So let the part know that you really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you'll be back to chat with it. And then whenever you're ready, just come back to the room.
Yeah, wow.
So what you're feeling, man, is a sense of the true self. And self is not a part that judges the nervousness and goes, why is the nervousness is here? Self loves the nervousness because it appreciates that all parts are trying to help you. Yeah, they have some dysfunctional ways of doing it. But in the end, if they weren't there, you probably wouldn't be where you are. So when you learn to love the parts of yourself that you might have initially judged, you actually have self-energy and true self-energy, and you can come from an authentic place.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show that, they talk about your dark side.
Yeah.
Right? And from your childhood and traumas, everything you go through is like a driving factor for you. But that dark side also creates the light side in what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And who you are as a person. For me, having love, having empathy, that connection, doing this podcast, for you doing the coaching side of things and being the person and the father that you are as well.
Yeah.
That all stems from that dark side, childhood.
Yeah.
And it is such a beautiful, beautiful feeling when you are connected with that true version of you, that little boy, that little girl inside. Because I think being a father myself, we can learn so much from our little ones that actually be a kid. Let that inner child out. It's so important because the hustle and bustle of being an adult, life's going so fast that we're just so stressed, so focused on other things. Instead of just being that inner child.
Yeah, bro.
We need to let it out.
It's crazy that in the Bible, there was a period where the disciples were with Jesus, and Jesus was on a mission, traveling to places, healing people, helping people. And in the moment where they're kind of stopping somewhere, the children, they're coming and they're approaching Jesus, and the disciples are like, children, go away, we've got important things to do. And Jesus says, never do that. Let the little children come to me, because the little children are so great in the kingdom of heaven. And the reason why he says that is because he always the Bible encourages people to have childlike faith. Because when you're a child, you don't walk around going, oh, I'm worried about what this person thinks of me, worried about what that person thinks of me. You'll just go up and be like, hey, I like you. Be my friend. But it's somewhere along the way that we lose that, and we now start to have another part of ourselves that goes, no, we can't do that. We need to play hard to get, or we can't show this person, or can't be vulnerable to this person.
Do you feel like that's molded through society and through our parents?
Yeah.
Or is that a natural evolution of becoming from child to adulthood?
No, I think it's, I think we, as we go and as we grow up as a child, our natural state is what you experience there. That the feeling you're experiencing, that's the self, that's the joy. Joy comes from self-energy, right? So what happens is we go along and we have a moment of trauma and we get split into this part, maybe the protector part. And now when the protector part is operating, it doesn't allow us to have this sense of joy. And yes, absolutely, it's been conditioned into us because of all these things of you got to be tough. So now I look at Andrew Tate and I think to myself, oh, I need to be tough like Andrew Tate and I can't be weak like Andrew Tate. I can't be weak. So now I need to have my own protector part. So when I'm talking with my friends, I can't be vulnerable with them now. So it's molded into society. We see it on social media. We see it in all different places. We see it even with, people start saying no homo. And now we're like, I want to say I love you. I want to say I appreciate you, but no, I got to be tough. So I'm using this protective part so I don't actually get to be fully myself. Does that make sense?
It does. But do you feel like there's also a fine line of, as a man, being too emotional, but you still want to be masculine? Because I think there's a lot of issues in society with boys, I would say men, but they're not really being men. They're more on the feminine side and so emotional. We're losing, I guess, that masculinity from society.
Yeah.
What's your, I guess, perception on that?
Have you ever watched a TV show called Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yes.
Okay. So do you remember the moment where Zuko, he switches from the dark, evil place that he was, because he was driven by finding the Avatar and killing the Avatar and hunting the Avatar. That's what he was driven by, rage. And then when he switches over to the good side, he loses his fire. Remember that?
Yes.
And now he doesn't have strength. So what they do is they go to the original firebending masters, the two dragons. I have goosebumps when I talk about this. And the dragons, they give them the gift. They give them the gift of fire. And he goes, all of a sudden, now he's able to bend fire. And the reason why is because rage and anger is very, very powerful. But the new force is coming from a place of love. And now he gets his fire back because he's doing things from a place of love, right? So what does this actually look like? And a good example of this is, look at Andrew Tate energy. Look at Donald Trump energy. It's rage. It's the world hurt me, so I'm going to hurt the world energy. The world hurt me, so I'm going to give it to the world. That's David Goggins energy, Andrew Tate energy. Can you be successful with that energy? Absolutely. Will you have joy? No, not unless you are constantly proving to yourself that you are successful. So in the moment where you're not doing something that makes you feel good or make you feel proud of yourself, you won't be having a good time. Versus someone like Tony Robbins, which is, if you watch his documentary, there's a moment where he's talking to the lady and he literally gets her to break up with the guy on the phone because, she needs to break up with the guy on the phone. And he's super aggressive. And then there's a moment in the documentary where a girl's talking about her being abused and he's breaking down in tears. So the true powerful masculine can dance and can do both because it's all from the intention of love. So so how to be masculine as a man without being weak? The answer is intention. Because if I'm coming from aggression and tough guy, that's coming from fear. I need to look tough because it makes me feel strong and safe. Love is I can be super aggressive. I can fight a war. I can destroy 5,000 armies if I need to with my aggression, but it's all coming from the love to protect my family. That is the difference.
Yeah, wow. It's the saying of, you want to be a warrior in a garden instead of a gardener in a war.
Yes.
Be able to tap into that inner warrior when you need to.
Yep.
But all the rest of the time, being at peace.
Yeah, because all of it comes from, Nick, that the warrior in the garden. If you look at those two scenarios, brilliant quote. One is usually just coming from the intention of protecting himself and looking strong and doing things selfishly. One is just coming from pure intention of serving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The intention is the only difference. Yeah.
Where did your intentions stem from to do the work that you do now? Because I know there was a period of your life where you were hard on the party life, drugs, alcohol.
Yeah.
What was the kind of changing moment that goes, I need to make a change in my life and this is the direction I'm going to head in?
So I think throughout my life, I always had some part of me that loved to help people, right? So the intention, I think, was always there. But sometimes you can look at something and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do, but you're not ready for it. So I think the intention was there, because even when I would finish sales and I would get a sale on the phone, when I celebrated, I would immediately go to my friends and go, oh, this is what I did. This is what I did. So I could always see that there's that part of me that just loves to give people really valuable advice and share the really valuable advice. But I think where it shifted off for me is when it got to a boiling point where I realized that there's like, I'm born for this. And it's almost like I realized I've been shaped for this my entire life. It's like, even in church, I would always share knowledge. Even I would always mentor people, even when I was in, like, I've mentored and shared knowledge for so long, but it came a point for me where it was just boiling point when I was in my corporate job. And I saw Tony Robbins a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do, but I wasn't ready for it yet. And a couple of things, started urging me. And what happens is, you will start to, the universe or God or whatever people want to call it, it will start to give you signs. See, I was in that corporate job and I started to have all these reasons for why I don't want to be there anymore. I don't like this person. I don't like this person. I don't like this person. It's like, those things, all those signs of all those things that you didn't like, they were always there in the company. It's just that you've just started to see them now because God or the universe has now put a new path in front of you. So if I was to summarize the answer for you, it would actually be God or the universe putting those signs in your way and just saying, now you're ready for this, but I've been shaping you for your entire life.
The path is written, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's your relationship with God? You're a man of faith. Have you always been a man of faith?
Yeah. So I've always had a pull to Jesus Christ, but I was born in a Christian family, and I was someone who, I think I need the truth. Something needs to be the truth for me. So I didn't like the fact that I was just trusting in Jesus Christ just because I was forced to go to church. So there was a period where I started asking a lot of questions. And when I got into personal development and psychology, I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? Why do I need God? Why do I need Jesus Christ? Because I can do all this self-love stuff and all this discipline stuff by myself. So I don't really need God. But then the closest that I started to look, the more I started to realize that the deepest truths of psychology all stem from biblical truth. And I started seeing so much crossover between psychology and Jesus Christ. And it became so much more obvious that for me, Jesus Christ for me is God. And I ended up coming back to the faith. So I went away from the faith and then I asked genuine questions, and my personal development and psychological journey led me back to Jesus Christ. So I'm a man of faith, and I would say that I love Jesus with all my heart, and I would try my best to be the best Christian I am, and I suck every single day, and I make so many mistakes every single day, but that's the beauty with Christianity. Christianity is not a religion that says that you need to be perfect. It's a religion that says that I've taken all your sins away, and you just got to have a relationship with me and trust that I will be there with you. And eventually he kind of shapes you to becoming a better and better Christian every single day. It's a journey. It really isn't a destination with Christianity.
At the end of the day, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect.
We're not perfect, We're not perfect. And I think that's the beauty about Christianity. The way it does things is it kind of says there's nothing that you can do. All other religions are Christianity, people chasing God. But Christianity is the only religion where God is chasing man, where he just goes, there's nothing that you can do. There's no good works that you can do to get into heaven. It's only by the grace of God that you accept that gets you into heaven. And it's true, because I think it makes sense, because we're human and I'm always going to make mistakes. So thank God it's not because of my good works.
Do you feel like religion's being lost in society? A lot of young men are ego-driven, thinking the world's on their shoulders. They have to do everything themselves. They don't have, God behind them, guiding them, directing them. So when times get tough, they feel like they're the only ones that can get themselves out of it. Do you feel like because we have that maybe lack of connection to God, whoever God is for you,
Yeah.
that a lot of men are struggling when adversity is upon us?
I don't know the answer to that question. Because if you ask me what's the real answer to the question of why are men struggling, it's really just trauma and not really being able to understand their emotions and learn to heal themselves and connect back with the true self. That's the reason.
But in saying that, you say your true self, the higher power God would be like is all intertwined with that, correct?
That's where, yeah. So that's where it's really interesting. So this is one of those questions where I'm researching this and going through this on my own journey at the moment, and I don't have the answers to this. But I do know this. That, okay, so for example, you look at 12-step, in Alcoholic Anonymous in order to overcome your addictions. And in 12-step, I think it's the first step that you have to admit that it's not in your hands. So what I do feel like men are missing is the ability to realize that it's not in their hands. No matter what trauma they have, because most people have trauma, a lot of people don't have the tools to actually overcome their own trauma. And it's a very big journey. I'm still going through it, and I'm a mindset coach. The only other alternative, the practical solution, is to trust in a higher power, because you can't do it on your own. And in fact, it's my pride of thinking that I can do it on my own that screws me up. Because I remember when I was struggling with all these little addictions, and I would think that I could battle it with my pure will. But in that moment where I say, you know what, God, I'm having this temptation right now, help me, it relieves that stress in your body that's trying to do it on your own. You know what I mean? And that relief of the stress and trusting in the higher power eases your body, and it's much easier to make decisions that you need to make because you're putting it in a higher power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I feel like it starts from you need to build a relationship with your true self, and as a result of that, you will build a relationship with a higher purpose.
Yeah, maybe.
High power.
Yeah. I think you can probably do both at the same time.
Yeah.
I think and you know what? Here's another thing. Like, I don't know which way it needs to be as well. You know what I mean?
Everyone's on a different journey.
Everyone's on a different journey. That's the thing, bro. Everyone's on a different journey. Everyone's pursuing their own way of doing things. And some people will, find comfort in God, and some people won't. I think that, if you don't do, like, my personal religious belief is definitely find God.
Yep.
Because you can't do it on your own, and also do the work to heal yourself as well, and do both. That's the best way to do things. But if you can't have the healing on your own, which is very impractical because it's a big journey to go through, then at least trust in a higher power. But here's the thing though. What faith also gives you is it gives you a community, it gives you a mission, right? It gives you a mission, because if I'm Islam or if I'm Christian or Buddhist or whatever, it gives you a mission to do life a certain way, and that's what men don't have. So it gives men a mission. It gives men a community of people who believe in the same thing, right? And then it gives people principles to live from. And those are the three things that are missing from men today. They don't have a community, they don't have a mission, and they don't have principles. So that's what I think religion really does from a practical standpoint.
Do we find God, or does God find us? Because there's probably a lot of young men out there right now that are feeling lost, no direction, not really a connection with God, or didn't have an upbringing where religion was a big part of it. We know the importance of having a relationship with a higher power, whoever that is.
Yeah.
How do you reckon we find it, or as we say, the path is written and God will come into our life when it's needed?
I've never been asked this question, and I think it's great because right now I get to share some practical advice for someone who is seeking God and who does feel like I can't do it on my own. I need to trust in some sort of higher power, but who? Because there's 1,000 different options. Who do I trust? And I think the best way to do it is because right now I can just say, okay, go and trust Jesus, but you can't. You can't just go and trust Jesus. What you need to do in the beginning, if you're not in a church or in a mosque or anything, is actually just to start with just coming to a place of just going, God, I need help. I can't do this life alone. Whoever you are, reveal yourself to me and show me signs and honestly reveal yourself to me. And I truly believe if you pray that prayer and you have that intention, God will reveal himself to you.
You mentioned before you still struggle from time to time with a lot of the traumas and whatever else comes up for you. What do you most struggle with now?
Oh, it's a very, very good question. I would definitely say it's probably, I think sometimes what I can do is over-intellectualize my faith because faith, by definition, is the ability to make that jump where there is no logical bridge. So I think sometimes what I do is I overcomplicate and I overanalyze things. And it's part of what's made me me, because I've analyzed things so much that I come to the truth on many things. And that's helped me in my business in many different areas. But yeah, it's definitely a part of me that sometimes plagues me. It's both a blessing and a curse to seek the truth so obsessively that questions in my own faith, I think I overcomplicate them a lot too much, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a human thing, right? We'd like to overcomplicate everything. When
Yeah.
the reality is life is really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? So this is what I've realized. Oh, I don't know if I would exactly agree with that.
Okay.
So my caveat to this is you've had moments in your life, I'm sure, Nick, where life feels like very complex. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come out of that period of chaos into a period of order where you're like, oh my God, it was simple. The whole time it was simple. And then before you know it, you go back into another bout of chaos. So life is always in a constant flux between order and chaos.
It's like a cycle of growth. You have to go through that to grow, to learn, to then come out the other side and have the realization of, oh, wow, that was easy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what I think is it's a moment of order where how do I explain this? Yeah, it's a moment of it's both. Life is both simple and complex.
Do you think it comes down to personal choice? So you can choose your hard, right?
Okay, so I feel like people will go to what they resonate with. So haven't you noticed in life, there's two different types of things. There's people who they like to philosophize, and there's people who are just like, no, it's just black and white. No, it's simple. It's black and white. And different people will resonate with different people. Like, for example, the people who are black and white thinkers, do you think they're going to resonate with Jordan Peterson?
No.
And then there's people who are just like, no, this is the truth. It's you do it or you don't. Jocko Willink, right? So it's different people who resonate with different people, but this is the big like structure of the world. The world has different options and people will always go to what they prefer. So people like me will resonate with Jordan Peterson, but I also have a part of me that resonates with sometimes I just got to be black and white and simple to just do the thing I need to do. So I believe because of that, the nature of the universe is life is both complex and simple. It's a paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All different parts, just like we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Every part of us is different within our body, within life.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes it interesting.
Yes, absolutely. It keeps it interesting, you know, and you never get bored.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to dive into fatherhood.
Yes.
Because I found out this morning that you're a father of 2 boys.
Yes.
Man, what's that like?
Man. First thing I'll say is I was sharing this with you before the podcast that when I first became a father, everyone talks about, oh, you look at your child and instantly you fall in love and you know from that moment you're going to protect them with your life and you're going to be there for them and you're going to be as present as you possibly can. And for me, that just wasn't the truth. I was in a period of my business where I was under a lot of stress and I just couldn't be present with my kids. I had no idea what was going on. And now when I look back, I realized it was my coping mechanism because this was something so big and so scary that was very, very triggering for me. So I just ran back into my business and focused on business. And believe it or not, I had a lot of relationship problems because Lisa could see that, you know, I wasn't being present with the kids. Lisa could see that I wasn't really even helping with the kids. So we had a lot of relationship breakdowns because of that. And I think eventually, slowly, as Neo got older, I slowly started to resonate with his personality and find him funny and all that kind of stuff. And I think I just started to slowly fall in love with my son. And now it's honestly the best thing ever. Genuinely, everything that they say about like having children is exactly what it is. It's both the hardest thing in the world and it's the most beautiful thing in the world as well. There's moments I look and I'm just like, why is this guy coming into my Zoom? Like, why is this guy coming into my coaching session right now? Like my little son just comes and he's just like, hey, and I'm in the middle of like a deep transformational healing process. And it's annoying, you know, and all the stuff that you have to do and you can't just relax. You always have to be looking after kids and you can't travel, all this kind of stuff. But there's moments where you come home and you hug them and they show you something, you know, stupid or whatever. And you look at them and you love them and you just like, this is the best thing that I've ever done. This is the most meaningful thing that I've ever done. So genuinely, I think it's both. One of the misconceptions I had, Nick, was that before having kids, I thought to myself, I don't want to have kids. And the main reason is because I'm not going to be as productive and I'm going to lose time. And here's what I've realized. So there's a period where after we had kids, after we had Ari, Lisa took both the kids and she went to New Caledonia, which is where she's from. And she took them and she asked me, she's like, do you want to come? I'm just going to visit my grandparents. And I said, no, I'm going to use this time to be able to work on my business. So I was like, perfect. She's going overseas for 2 weeks and I get to be alone for 2 weeks and I'm going to be productive as hell. Like, bro, it's going to be minute on the minute. I have all these plans, all this kind of stuff. And as soon as they left, Netflix, Uber Eats, absolute binging. And I came to this realization. Kids make you way more productive. And the reason why they make you so much more productive is they make you value your time so much. And that's why when my kids came back, I became so productive again. Because I was like, okay, I only had between this hour and between this hour, this is where I got to get this time, this is where I got to get this time. It's like the Parkinson's law, right? So the big thing I realized is kids actually make you way more productive and way more efficient.
Yeah, I love that you went through that experience of having to develop a relationship with your son, because for me it was totally different. And for most dads I speak to, it's like once your son or daughter is born, it's like that instant connection. That's what it was like for me. It's like you don't know true love until you hold your own flesh and blood. And it was like just a whole different level of love that I haven't felt before, that unconditional love. And for me to then now sit here and hear that you didn't experience that when your son was first born,
Yeah,
it's very interesting how that wouldn't have happened, because that's your flesh, that's your blood.
yeah,
How would you not have like a deep connection with that?
yeah, bro. Which definitely put me into a spiral because I was thinking, what's wrong with me? I was thinking, am I just this cold, heartless person who doesn't give a shit about my own children? And I dealt with that for a long time, and I'm very blessed that I developed a relationship and really fell in love with my children. And once again, I've started to realize that different people have the different experiences, you know, and because when I tell that story, I've had a couple of other guys get up and be like, bro, that was my experience too, that I didn't feel a connection at all. And then only after about a year, I started feeling a connection. So I've realized like God gives us all different experiences so we can resonate with different people and serve different people and encourage different people. So, yeah.
Have you thought about like why you didn't have that instant connection? Do you feel like that stems from anything?
Yeah, man. I don't know the answer to that question 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But what I definitely will say is that I think it's a lot. One of the answers I have is probably a lot simpler than that. And it's that I always I love the interaction. You know what I mean? I like seeing the character.
So when they're just a baby, and really when they're first born, it's just the mum and the baby.
Yeah, I mean, like they're born and the child looks like a lizard and the child doesn't do anything, you know what I mean? So, you know, I definitely take my hats off to the people who can just love, you know, like that. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was like I needed to go on my own process of getting to know my son and then falling in love with my son, you know? But I think it did change because then fatherhood and children became a very high value for me. And like, yeah, I just love being around my children. Initially, even when Lisa left me with the children, I didn't want it because I was like, oh my God, I don't like hanging on my children because it's this, but now I just love it. Now I love being with them, and it's just so fun, and you learn so many things, and it's just so like, you know what it is? Maybe, you know what it is? I think maybe they're so pure. It's like too much for me. It's like you are so perfect and you are so pure that I am like so dark in front of you. I don't feel like I am good enough to even be around you.
So
and I think that's what it is.
there?
Probably, bro. I mean, now I'm just discovering this on the podcast. I think that's what it was. It was just, you are so pure and you are so perfect, and I'm so sinful and I'm so bad. You know what I mean?
Did you feel like you were good enough to be a dad?
Yeah, you know what? As I'm reflecting, I don't think I was, Nick.
Why?
I don't think I felt good enough to be a dad because I don't think... Okay. I don't think I was as selfless as my wife was. I do believe that by nature, usually, if you look at like Grant Cardone or, some of these power couples, there's always one selfish and one that's like kind of not, But by nature, my wife is just a very selfless person. Just like doesn't think about herself. Me, it's like I'm selfish by nature in the sense it's like I got to make sure you get a deal and I get a deal. I'm like, it's business. You know what I mean? That's the way I just naturally think. So I think being around children, it's like you sacrifice so much. You sacrifice your time. You sacrifice your energy. You sacrifice your finances. You sacrifice your peace. So it's like to be able to do that when I know that I'm a selfish person and I have selfish goals that I want to achieve. I think it was just like something maybe didn't allow me to feel worthy enough to sit in front of my child. But I think as I got to know my son, I think I found that love, and that's what it does, Nick. You know what? It helps you become selfless because there's nothing that can give you, except love, which is big, but it helped me really fall in love with my son and taught me what true unconditional selfless love probably is. And one thing I've discovered is like the way I think God has created us is that when we're young, we want to become an adult. Think about it. When you're a baby, you want to be older. You want to do all the things that the older people do. You want to drive a car. You want to press the buttons. You want to have a phone. You know what I mean? But then as you become older, you want to become like a child.
Yes.
And I think that is the way God has created us, for us to learn to be adults, but then have children so we can learn off them to become a child again, so we can do both. Be an adult, but at the same time, never lose the inner child, because that is our source of life.
I definitely agree. And even for example, like if your kid's being a terror, right? Getting into things, turning everything on, making a mess everywhere, or trying to cook dinner and they want to get involved, you're like, no, you're going to take up too much time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right, there's a beautiful lesson in that of slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
We're trying to go 100 miles an hour, do everything now.
Yep.
Instead of just slowing down, being in the present moment,
Yep.
letting that inner child come out, have fun, get them involved in cooking dinner or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Because then you're building a strong foundation for them to grow on top of as well. And I say this all the time, anyone can be a father, but not everyone can be a dad. To be there.
Yeah.
Parenting's tough.
Oh, it's
and
so
if you
tough.
sit there at night and be like, parenting's tough, you're doing a good job because you have the realization that it is hard, that you have to show up as a man, not only for your kids, but for yourself, for your partner, have that dynamic, that healthy dynamic, and lead by example. Like even yesterday, I put a post up. I was driving past a golf course, and there's this guy playing golf, and his toddler's in the pram, and most people are like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what are your priorities?" Like,
Yeah, that's sick.
yeah, and I think
That's awesome that he took him along.
Yeah, I thought that is awesome because what lesson does that show your kid? don't use them as an excuse not to do the things that you enjoy. Because how many parents go, oh, I wish I could have traveled. I wish I could have did this, but I had kids.
Yep.
What does that lead to?
Yep.
Internal resent towards them.
That's right. That's right.
How's that relationship going to be? When you have resent towards your own children.
Yep.
Don't use them as an excuse.
Yep.
Do the thing and take them with you. It may take longer.
Yep.
But the process, the journey is going to be a lot more fulfilling. And I think there's a beautiful message within that guy playing golf with his child in the pram.
Yeah. As I listen to that, Nick, it shows me how much it's like God or the universe or whatever people want to think keeps trying to knock us on the head and say, like, you're focusing on something that is meaningless. You're focusing on things that don't matter. Slow down. Be present where you are. Enjoy what's in front of you. And it's like isn't it a constant knock? It's a constant knock. It's just like, okay, I'll show you another moment where maybe you're giving a speech and there's a moment of just finally in that speech at a wedding, you actually get to share what you want to share about the person. And it's the most beautiful moment, but we can only do that when we're drunk. You know what I mean? And it's like, or a moment where, you know, something happens and, you know, one of your family members, you know, is in hospital and you start to wonder, I should have been present all these times. Or maybe now our kids are leaving off and they're leaving home. And now I think to myself, I should have been present all of these times. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just a constant knock and reminder that we just got to learn to be a little bit more present.
The big thing that nailed this in for me was a past episode I did. Bless you.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah.
With Ahmed Harachi, and that's to be released soon. But he's the Islam mortician guy, right?
Big guy, yeah.
Yeah. He's bearing babies. And I'm like, bro, like, he's a father himself. Imagine bearing children. And it's the reality of death. And I know it's such a deep topic, but in touch wood, nothing bad happens. But the reality is we're all going to die. Live life in the moment, especially if you're a father. Being there for your kids. Because even my daughter, if I'm on my phone, she's yelling at me, get off your phone, like, let's go play. Because that's what's important. Being out there, spending those moments with the people that you love. Because that's how you're going to be remembered. Through those memories, through those good deeds that you do.
Yeah.
Not about the money and the material things. Yeah. All that does is just get passed down to other people, and the reality is they don't really care about it.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful message, that just be present, because you don't know when your time is up. And it's the reality of life that we are all going to end up back in the ground.
Wow, bro. I could not have said it better. You know, I want to speak to something that's really important, and I want to make this whole thing that you said very practical. Because what I hear is when people are listening to this podcast, they're thinking, okay, I got to be present. I got to focus on things that are meaningful. I got to learn to slow down. But I hear people thinking, yeah, but I got bills to pay, and I got things to do, and I got business to run, and I got these goals. And whenever I do the chase, which is masculine, then I struggle to do the feminine, which is slow down, reflect, be grateful. And I want to share with people a very practical piece of advice, and it's this. Zoom in to get the everyday tasks, the priorities, the to-do list, the goal focusing. Zoom out to be able to reflect on how far you've come and how grateful you are and what you have around you and how beautiful life is. The key to a successful yet fulfilling life is to regularly zoom in and out.
Yeah, gratitude's a big part.
Yep. Yeah.
I practice it daily. And now even I get my daughter to practice it.
Beautiful.
I go, we are grateful for fresh air. We're grateful for the sun. We're grateful for mum. Grateful for dad. Grateful for food. Yeah. And she just repeats it.
Yeah.
And it's just that healthy practice of gratitude.
Yes.
When she gets older, she'll be able to do her own gratitude. But
Yeah.
it's just starting now because it just instills that positive affirmation of be grateful for what we have.
But I think that's such a good time to do it too, because I think you grow up and all your life under the age of 10, you create a sense of entitlement that everything I have is just, yeah, great, I just have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's so good that you're getting your daughter to do that at that age, because it gets her to realize what, like, all the awesome things that she gets to have in her life under the age of 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that eventually sticks with them, because they say that, you know, whatever you learn in your younger years, it always sticks. So I think it's such a crucial thing that parents should probably be doing. And after you shared that, I'm like, I'm probably definitely going to get my kid to do that as well. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the top things that your children have taught you about life? We've spoken about being present.
Yeah.
But besides that, what else has your kids taught you?
I would say definitely lots. Definitely that you need to allow yourself to let the emotions out, you know, because what kids tend to do is when they have a big emotion or they have a temper tantrum, the most effective way to deal with that is to validate that. And what you'll see is, like, back in the day, I used to have this temper tantrum, and you had a similar experience where you have a temper tantrum and you have a big emotion. And when we were younger, our parents wouldn't validate that.
No.
They would either ignore that,
Smacked on the ass.
smacked on the ass for that. And those are those moments where the trauma begins. Whereas now what I see my wife do is when they have a big emotion, she'll hold them, she'll make them feel heard, she'll make them feel special. And then what happens is 2 minutes later, they're just laughing again and they're carrying on again. So one of the things I realized is it's very important to validate my own emotions and allow myself to feel what I need to feel. You know what I mean? That's what the kids taught me, the first one. Second one that kids taught me is just to remember to enjoy the journey. Like, my God, I think so many times where you feel like you're going to die because of this or because of this or because you get sick one day, you start to reflect on all these moments and you're just like, man, I should have just enjoyed the journey a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just see them, they're just so present wherever they are and whatever they actually do. And they're not thinking about what's next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's interesting is, like, for me, my son's watching TV and we'll say, okay, you got 3 more minutes. And he's like fully present with the 3 more minutes. Whereas for me, if you give me 3 more minutes, I'll be thinking in my head, okay, I've only got 3 minutes, so I can't really enjoy this. I need like the whole hour of what I love to do to be like, now I can enjoy it. But even the 1 minute that he has left watching the TV, he's like so present with it that he enjoys that 1 minute. He's not thinking about, no, I need like 30 seconds. He's just like, no. I just need whatever time I can get. And he's fully present with that. So what I learned was from that, it's like, just be present with whatever you have in the moment, you know? So really it's just presence and being able to feel your emotions and just being able to just be yourself. That's it.
I love the emphasis you put on the regulation of emotions. I think it's so
that's
important.
what it was. Yep.
Because if you allow your children to, or create a safe space for your children to learn how to regulate their emotions,
Yeah.
they're going to be a lot more confident, have a lot more self-esteem to actually express themselves in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
Instead of like when you were younger, you express yourself in anger.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or going down the path of drugs, alcohol. Whereas if we set the example and instill these healthy, I guess, habits of regulating our emotions and understanding ourselves, when we become adults and we're hit with adversity because life's going to hit us, we're going to have the tools to better deal with that.
Yep.
And I think it's so important as parents, and it all starts in the home, to create that safe space for our kids to learn to regulate their emotions and understand themselves. People say all the time, like my daughter's 2, and they go, oh, terrible twos. And I'm like, no, it's not terrible twos, because this is a beautiful age where they're actually starting to learn to express themselves. They're learning who they are. and what makes them upset, what makes them happy, and how to express that. So if we can create that safe space for them to be able to do that, I think it's going to make better adults.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that all the truths that you're talking about, like I'm seeing everything like from a modality and science perspective, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Everything you say is correct. Because from a science modality perspective, when it comes to psychology, with the method that I talk about, which is parts work, the self, the true self, is not present with children. So children don't have a true self, right, at that time. So it's a little bit more complex. But the parent need to be the self to the child. So because of the presence of the self, one of the qualities is curiosity and compassion. So when the child is crying, you need to be compassionate towards the child. And when the children have that when they're young, then they get a strong connection to their own selves when they're older. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But when they don't have that compassionate parent when they're young, then they split into a part in order to cope and protect themselves.
Yeah, because people say all the time, right? Kids are resilient. They're not. They just form coping mechanisms.
Oh, that's so good. That's so true. That's exactly what it is. And it's like, if we were the self to them in that moment, and we came from self, it has 8 different qualities, right? Which is, interestingly, exactly all the 8 qualities of Jesus Christ, which is very interesting. It's a whole different topic. But if we were the self to them in all those moments of their trauma, then they will have a stronger connection to their own selves when they're older. Whereas what tends to happen is when that doesn't happen, like you said, there's coping mechanisms, and they don't have that, they can't connect to self, so they keep using these coping mechanisms, which can be outdated with real life now. It worked for a time, but what got you here won't get you there. So you're absolutely correct. So, but then there's a topic I've been thinking about, and I don't know what you're going to think of this, but here's the thing: are you proud to be who you are today?
What? I would say I'm proud of the journey I'm on.
Okay, beautiful. I would say, I would say the same, and I would say I am. So, but here's the thing: people say things like, "I would never want my kids to go through what I went through."
Yes.
But how could that be true if I'm proud of who I am today?
And that made you into who you are.
Into who I am.
Coming back to the dark, creating the light, right?
Yeah. So this is a paradox I've been thinking about, which is, what's the truth in that? Because we would say, "Oh, I would never want my kids to go through that." Well, why? Because if it may be who I am and I'm proud to have these lessons, then there's nothing to not let your kids go through. You know what I mean? So I'm not on either side yet. This is something I've been reflecting on. You know what I mean? What's your thoughts on that?
It actually gets me thinking, like, this next generation, because they have been given everything and they have been protected.
Yeah.
When adversity does come, they can't handle it. And a lot of young men are struggling. So I feel like as a parent, it's the fine line of protecting, but also letting them go out and explore and face that adversity, because that's where they'll learn and they grow. Obviously, not letting them, or not putting them in an environment where they're going to have extreme harm and traumas, but just the little things of like running outside and falling over, right? Not picking them up straight away, like letting them feel that pain. Because they're going to build like strength and resilience that way. Did you get where I'm like that fine line?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's so interesting is like all the truths that you're saying, it's just like it so lines up with the stuff that I've learned scientifically as well that I use. And one of them is that number one, it's not extreme, right? So that's the other thing. So there has to be a balance. But the other thing is, in order to do the healing process, I do a very specific healing process with people to reconnect with that child and to be able to heal their past trauma. Part of the healing process, which I've never actually talked about, is going back with the child, which isn't easy to do because you got to work with all the protecting parts and the coping mechanisms before you get to the inner child.
So it's like a timeline therapy kind of thing?
No, it's
different?
Much deeper than timeline therapy. Yeah. I have a lot of criticism on the timeline therapy, which we'll go into later. But it is, so we work with all the protectors. We get all their permission before we get to the inner child, because they won't let you to the inner child, which is really interesting. They won't let you unless they trust you and they can sense the presence of the self. So what happens is you get over here, and then You do a process where you get them as their true self to go be with them as a child in all of the traumatic moments that they went through. And what that shows is if right now we're going back and doing this as our true self. But what this shows is what we needed in that is the traumas that we went through, we can handle any of the traumas as a child as long as we had a compassionate and curious parent to be able to be with us through all of those moments.
It's that safety net.
Yes. So no matter how traumatic it was, as long as we had the curious and compassionate from the self parent to be with us, we will have a very, very strong connection to self. Doesn't matter how bad the trauma is. Right? So that's why the reparenting process is coming back and actually allowing our true self to go back and be with that inner child through all of those moments until they're actually healed. And it's a very, very beautiful process.
Yeah. It sounds like a movie, like Game of Thrones. You got to go through all the different kingdoms.
Bro, parts work is very, very interesting. It's very like, it's like a movie. It's like you have all these different characters and they have different ways of doing things, and parts present in different ways. Like sometimes I've had clients have parts present like they're in a conference room and they talk to all different parts, and different parts step in, and one part's like, no, I want to be productive. Another part's like, no, I'm feeling guilty that I wasn't productive. And you all have all these different parts. So you have to kind of like be the mediator between all the parts and come from a place of compassion and then heal them. And it's a very interesting process, I'll tell you that.
I can feel your passion. I can feel your energy.
Yeah.
Right? This is your thing. This is what you love. How do you not take this into your home life? Because I know your partner, Lisa, right? She's kind of different, right?
Yeah,
She's not on the personal development growth thing, and I can relate to that, right? My partner, opposite to me. Not into the personal. I tried to drag her to a few events.
Yeah.
And she got some stuff out of it, but she's like, do not take me to one of these again.
Yes.
How's that dynamic, and how do you not bring what you do into your relationship?
You're going to love this answer. Are you ready? You're going to love this answer. So I used to look at those fitness influencers who are couples, and they'd say things like, oh, you have to have a partner that shares the same value as you. You know, if you don't have a partner that shares the same value as you, then, you know, it's the wrong partner. And I that made me feel really weird, because I was like, hang on, I love Lisa. I feel like she's perfect for me, but she almost hates personal development. Almost is not a fan of it. And it was very hard for me to come to terms with that. I remember asking her one point, I was in a very bad place at the time, but I said, what are your goals and ambitions? And she goes, I don't have any. And I remember my heart was breaking.
I can feel
Because I was like, what do you mean you don't have goals and ambitions? You know what I mean? So here's what I realized. What I realized was because I was obsessed with personal development, every time it would actually bring me back. Whenever I would talk to her, she'd bring me back down to earth, right? Because everything is just like, because I'm a coach, I'm always theories and philosophies and ideas and science, and everything's got to be like a formula. And it's like, when I talk to her, she's just like, babe, just keep it simple.
It's like going to a Tony Robbins event, being on a high and then coming back to reality.
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is, you know? You come back and she's on a high. And there's another concept to explain that. But the point is, when I came back to her, she just balanced me out, and I realized something. That's exactly what I needed. I needed someone that brought me back down to earth, because that is true personal development.
Yeah.
Personal development can sometimes be a bubble that we use to escape reality and the way life really is, by going on a constant, search for what is the best wisdom, which is absolutely beautiful. Like, it really is. But then if we never have a mechanism to bring us back down to earth and just be without personal development, then the paradox is that's not really true personal development.
It's like those personal development junkies just go to seminar after seminar after seminar, chasing all these answers because they feel like they're going to be a new person, right?
Yeah.
But they're never actually implementing anything, never taking action, and they're never just being in reality.
Yep, absolutely. And Nick, this is what I realized. because of that, Lisa is my best personal development coach.
Yeah. I actually really like that perspective, because for so long with my partner, I was like, I'm gonna say, like, why am I with you? Like, we're so different.
Yeah.
Like, are you dragging me down? Are we gonna have a future together? Because I have all these goals, these aspirations. And a funny thing, we went to a couples retreat kind of thing, and the big one of the questions was, write down your goals. Here I am with a piece of paper writing down all my goals. The facilitator comes
scribbling away.
Yeah, the facilitator comes to me and goes, "Oh, these are great."
Yeah,
but like, I meant to say, like, these are your couple goals. I was just so driven on me and all my goals that I didn't actually take into consideration, like, what do you want out of this relationship? Where do you see our future? And it's not from a point of her saying, "Oh, I want to start a business or have all these aspirations." It's like from a family standpoint, like, I want to have a steady, safe home environment, have kids, all that kind of stuff. But I never took that into consideration, because I was just all guns blazed.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
This is what I want.
That's right.
Selfish.
Yep.
And it's like, it's all good to have that stuff. But let me put this to you. If you achieve it all, you're on top of the mountain, so successful, you look around you, there's no one there. Because you were so driven to the point that you neglected your relationships, you neglected the people that you love, you neglected yourself, really. Is it really worth it? And he goes, you can have both, You may not have it now. It may be a slower burn, but it'll be a lot more fulfilling when you're on top of the mountains and you have people that you love around you.
Absolutely.
That was such a light bulb moment for me to be like, wow, I really need to prioritize my partner, my family, because if I want to create a future with you, this is what I need to focus on. And not judging her, because I used to have a lot of judgment because she wasn't into personal development, because she was different. Now it's just like, you are who you are. That yin yang. I'm so focused on podcasting and personal development and growth and business. You bring me back to reality of being Nick.
That's right.
And I think it's so important.
It's so important. And and that's why when you listen to that quote that says, trade your expectations for appreciations, you don't get it here, you get it here. You're like, oh, that's what it's talking about. I expected her to be in personal development, but now I appreciate that she's not into personal development, because that would not work in our relationship. Only one person can do that. So she needs to be the person that takes care of the different aspects of life. And we both have different things that we can appreciate about each other, and that's true love.
Yes.
Because if everything about personal development, at the end, what you're looking for is love. And there's a person right in front of me, and I'm not able to love her because she's not into what I'm into. True personal development is when you can love someone because they're not into what you're into. So the funny thing is, even though Lisa hates personal development, she is my personal development.
And the thing is, I wouldn't now, sitting back and having these conversations and going through what I've gone through, I wouldn't want anyone like me. Because imagine having a kid and we're both so focused on business. We're not going to be present. We're not going to be showing affection. What example are we showing to our children of how a family should be? Whereas now I can go all in on the business, podcasting, have this conversation, go inside and have a loving conversation with my partner because she's there and present.
And it gives you a break from personal development as
100%.
well. You know what I mean? And your brain gets to recharge a little bit as well. So I think it's like, but then here's the thing, right? But then what's the truth of that situation? Which is, should you be with a partner that's into the exact same thing as you're into? And the answer is, it depends on what you prefer. Because me and you were brought along a path where that's not what it's like for me and you.
I think you have to have some similarities, of
course. Some similarities, because it comes down to values. Because me and Lisa don't connect on personal development. We connect on God. We connect on food, right? And we connect on kids.
And the thing is, as you grow within a relationship, you're going to develop things together.
Yes, like kids.
Yes.
And then I can imagine it's just like, you both look at your little one, you're just like, oh my God, he's so cool. He's doing this, he's doing that. And you get to like really vibe out on different things. You know what I mean? So couples just, they have to have some values they connect on, but it doesn't have to be your highest value you connect on.
I love this conversation, man.
Yeah, I love this conversation too.
Bro, what are some of the lessons that you want to instill into your kids? We've spoken about what they've taught you, but what do you want to teach them?
Yeah. I think it slightly changes because they're boys.
Yes.
You're right. So because they're boys, I do want to teach them the ability to have, like Jordan Peterson has, the aggression, but be able to control it. Right? Because I don't want my kids to be flimsy and weak. And at the same time, I don't want them to be an overly macho, cocky person.
Yes.
I want them to be centered. I want them to be strong, powerful, but with full of love. So the first thing I would probably want to teach them is to be able to manage their emotions. That's one of the most important things, to regulate their emotions. I want to teach them the ability to be able to actually be grateful, and not just for the good things, but especially for the bad things. That's one of the most powerful things ever, for them to have the ability to be grateful for the bad things as well, because it's serving them in some way.
It transmutes into something
Transmutes
positive.
into something positive. That's one of the most powerful skills that anybody can ever have. And by the way, here's a side thing is, you'll always find that, have you noticed some people just don't have that skill?
Mm-hmm.
You know what that comes down to? How much self-energy you have. That's why trauma comes into this. Because if you've been traumatized and you don't have a strong connection to self, you struggle to be able to see the bright side of things.
Yes.
So anyway, different topic. But I would say emotional management, the ability to be able to see the good side of things. And I would say, like, I know this sounds like a weird generic answer, but like an obsession to do something that you love.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, instilling a drive to seek a purpose.
Yes.
Because we live in a society now where there's cheap pleasures everywhere, right?
Yes.
Pornography, drugs, alcohol.
We haven't even talked about instant gratification. Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of men out there, I'm going to say it again and again, there's a lot of men that are struggling, and we're going to cheap pleasures. I've even been down a path of pornography because I use it as a procrastination tool, right?
Yeah.
Shit gets hard, I'm like, oh, get this cheap pleasure.
Yeah.
2-second fucking dopamine here, and then, oh, why the hell did I do that?
Yes.
Right? And then you feel bad about yourself, put yourself down, and it's just like a cycle that continues and continues until you do the inner work and really build a strong relationship with yourself and find that path, that direction that you want to head in and have that purpose.
Yeah.
You being a father of 2 boys, you obviously want to instill that drive to get that purpose.
Yeah.
There's men listening right now that are feeling lost, no purpose, no real direction. How do we find it? Do we find it? Do we create it? Has it always been in us and we have to go on that, that hero's journey to unveil it?
I think everybody deep inside knows what it is.
Yes.
But they're just too scared to do it because they've been told, to listen to preachers, teachers, society, social media on what social media thinks is cool. Or you need to be an influencer, or you need to be an entrepreneur, or you need to be this. And what that does is when they now start focusing on all the other things they need to be, they stop focusing on what they actually want to be deep inside. So the problem is not most people don't know what the purpose is. Most people, they know, but they're just too scared to actually trust themselves to take that risk and do it. That's what I've realized. So, however, it is still utility in getting clear on it. And there's actually a very specific process to do it. Watch this. If I ask you, if I write down, I do this, I've taught this thousands of times. If I ask you to write on a piece of paper, what are the 3 things you spend most of your time on? What are the 3 things you spend most of your money on? What are the 3 things that you'd love to talk about? What are the 3 things that you, ads that you always get on social media? What are the 3 things that you love to learn about? If I ask you those 7 questions, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a theme that keeps coming up, right? Because the same thing that I love to talk about, personal development, is the same thing that I spend money on.
Yes.
The same thing that I spend money on is the same thing that I'm always learning about. The same thing that I'm always learning about is the same thing that I'm always getting on social media ads. So it's a line. As soon as you ask yourself those 7 questions, you will find a theme, and then you find that theme and you find out what's coming up most. And this is the actual priority of how I actually came up with this, which is personal development, number 1, business growth, number 2, health and fitness, number 3, relationships, number 4, and number 5, Christianity. Those 5 in that order. Now that I know that, now I know where to put my time. Because now I know if I put my time, my energy into personal development, that is what's going to fulfill me. So the first thing is ask yourself those questions, find out what the priority is, and put time into those areas. However, there will be reasons why you don't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to give a scenario of even myself, right?
Yep.
27, working a job that he doesn't particularly love.
Yep.
He knows his purpose and his passion is his business, personal development, podcasting, connection.
Yep.
You say once you find that, put your energy into it, right?
Yep.
But we don't want to burn all the boats. There's people say, burn all the boats, go all in. But we only hear from the people that it works for, not the 99% that it doesn't work for. What's your advice to myself or others listening that they know what their purpose is, their passion, and they want to go full throttle into it? But the reality is we have bills, we have family to pay for, food. How do we navigate that ocean?
This is a very, very good question and a very, very practical question. So another way that I've been asked this question is, let's just say acting is a high value of mine. Okay. And the natural path is go get into acting school and go become an actor and chase that. But I've got bills and I've got all these practical things that I need to look after, like my family, XYZ. So here's the thing I'll say. What has being a successful actor and getting some sort of accolade in acting got to do with actually acting? It's got nothing to do with each other. So here's where I'm going to bring it back. You don't need to go to acting school to start acting. You don't need an accolade or the Oscars to start acting. You can start doing it from your own bedroom right now. You can start doing it and you can put on social media and you can start filming some content and be an actor right now. You can start acting in the mirror right now. So one thing I'll say is, at all times, whatever your passion is, you can do it. It doesn't matter what it is, you can do it. Because people attach an end outcome to their high value. And they go, oh, if I'm into personal development, then the end outcome needs to be I'm a coach. If I'm into acting, then the end outcome needs to be I'm an Oscar. No. You can start doing it every single day. It doesn't matter. The second thing I'll say is, if you can't do that thing, then arrange your life in a way where you have a plan that's going to get you there. So for example, maybe I don't have the money to be able to go start acting school. And I'm working at this dead-end bakery job, and I'm sitting here and going, this has got nothing to do with my, acting. So you're not inspired. So you show up and you can't wait for Friday and you hate like what you're doing. But that's because you don't have any plan. Because now when you make the bakery part of the plan, because I'm going to save up X amount of money and I'm going to put it into acting school, I'm going to put it into acting schools, then I'm going to start creating content. And if now you have a plan to be able to get towards the where you want to be in that goal of acting, now everything comes together. So 2 things I'll say. You can always do what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh, I'm making music, I need to get a record deal. Record deal has got nothing to do with you enjoying music. Because if I'm coaching right now, I don't need to be on a stage to do coaching. When I'm right now and I'm speaking about what I love to do, I'm not thinking about being Tony Robbins or anyone else. I'm so satisfied being what I'm doing and what I love to do right now. Does that make sense?
I think pure intentions as well.
Pure intention.
Why are you doing it? Why are you creating that music? Is it to be famous and have a music label?
That's right.
Or are you doing it because you purely love music?
That's exactly right. People will confuse the accolade with their intention. Remember, you can do what you love to do right now. That's the first thing. So do what you do love right now. Find a way to incorporate it into your routine, because there's always ways to do it. The second thing is, if you don't like the way your life is right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't just be an actor. No. You either incorporate it into your routine or create a plan to eventually get there. Because now when I know that I'm working at this bakery for the next 2 years, and on the 3rd year I'm going to save this much money and invest it here and get to here, now the bakery becomes meaningful.
You know what? Integrating it in, right? If you're working in a bakery and you're an actor, fucking have fun with your job.
Yeah.
You have people that come in to buy bread.
Yep.
Have fun. Practice your acting skills.
Yep.
For me, for a long time, I I really disliked my job, and it's still not my favorite thing to do. But I've said multiple times throughout this podcast, connection is a high value for me.
Yep.
And the days that I enjoy most at work is when I have a customer or client that I connect with on a deep level, and I'm there to do my job, obviously, but having a deep conversation about life, you learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And it's just like a podcast that isn't on record. And I'm like, that's how I've integrated what I love and what I value into my job, which made me enjoy it just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But also I have the plan in place where, as I told you, today's Friday, right?
Yeah.
Usually I work Fridays, but I've built to a point, it was in my plan that I can pull back a day.
Yep.
So I can focus on the thing that I enjoy. And it's just like a process of continuing to do that.
Yeah. So, bro, like if I was to summarize the answer, and you're the best example of this, right? Don't make any excuse to not do it, because you can always incorporate it into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is, at least have a plan to get you there if you can't do what you want to do now.
Yeah.
That's it.
And don't sit there and complain that you can't do it when you're coming home from work and watching Netflix.
There you go.
It's like, what are you doing from 6 to 12 at night?
Yep.
For me, I'm working on the podcast and being a dad.
Yeah.
So no excuses.
No excuses, man. No excuses. And I think people make too many excuses on this particular topic, and they shouldn't do that. And I'll tell you why they shouldn't do that, because it's costing you more than you think, because there's a very inverse relationship between purpose and instant gratification. The more you think about, to anyone who's listening, think about the thing that you love. Maybe it's music, maybe it's personal development, maybe it's finance, maybe it's music, maybe it's media, maybe it's movies, maybe it's acting, whatever it is. When you're doing that thing and you're focused on that thing and you are in flow state in that thing, when you are in flow state in that moment, do you feel like looking at porn, consuming sugar, or gossiping about someone, or doing any of this social media crap? No. The only answer, there is another answer, which is healing your trauma, but that's a very impractical answer, because not a lot of people have a high value on that, and they'll probably never do that. The only other answer to instant gratification and your meaninglessness is to do something that's meaningful, because he who chases, he who chases pleasures, he who has no meaning in his life will distract himself with useless pleasures.
Man, this has been a very powerful conversation, and I really appreciate you for coming on here and sharing all that you've shared. We have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest. Now, this kind of integrates what we've just finished on talking about.
Yeah.
The question for you is, what is your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is to master my life and to empower others to do the same.
I love that.
That's it.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you, bro.
For the people that want to find out more about you, check you out, all the work that you're doing, where can they best find you?
They can find me on Kevin Paulraj Coaching on Instagram, but if you just type in Kevin Paulraj, and that's Kevin Paulraj, and if you type that on Google, there'll be a lot of links. Yeah.
Man, this has been amazing.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much. And for all the listeners, go follow this man. He's doing great things.
Thank you.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.
Man.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Thank you.